practice. We work on Linux and more precisely on embedded Linux. We do BSP, driver, real-time studies. And now I'm working on virtualization on server, but always on embedded context. Okay. We begin with just remember of real-time on Linux and next virtualization on Linux, and later we will see the virtualization and real-time together and how to respect RT constraints. And we will finish to see the network part and the low latency network inside a VM. Okay. So the first question is why virtualization? We can see many advantages. The first one is, of course, the reduction of matching. Bring back multiple machines into one machine, so it will reduce cost and energy. The modularity is also an advantage. It is easy to port to a physical machine and to transform it into a virtual machine, to remove a machine, to add a new machine. If you have a new functionality, you just have to add a new more machine. Of course, security is also an advantage. VM offer a great isolation and it's come with a good security. VM cannot see each other. The next advantage is, of course, the maintenance. With virtualization, you have all great maintenance facilities like snapshot, backup, migration. And the next part is also all the high stability solution facilities. You can have a cluster of a net of many hypervisors, and when VM come down because, for example, an hypervisor crash, you can power on another hypervisor. Here it is an example of the benefit of virtualization in data center. You can see that the internet traffic grows, the data center workloads also grows, but the data center energy consumption is very stable, and it is mainly due to the virtualization benefits. So while not in edge computing and on embedded world, it is mainly due to real-time constraints. And also, it is not the same culture. It's an embedded culture and not the server culture. But we will see that the real-time constraint aspect involves strongly, and it can now have good results and good real-time results inside the VM. Okay. Sorry. I work in the CPaaS project, which a platform to bring the virtualization and the real time. CPaaS project is for software-enabled automation platform and artifact CRM. It is LF for Linux Foundation Energy open source project. You can find the source on GitHub. It is a real-time platform that can run virtualization, automation, and protection application. It is based on Yocto to have like you can encounter in the embedded world. And Yocto, it's a project to design your own OS based on Linux. The CPaaS project is mainly for electrical substation and move physical machine into this electrical substation into one or many hypervisors to gain in cost and energy. In this talk, we will base on use case. Use case is moving electrical substation physical machine into one hypervisor. It's a real case study. This is what RTE, the French power transmission company, is working on. The constraint is virtualize all the physical machine, respect the real-time constraint, respect network latency defined in the IEC 61850 standards. It's a standard for power transmission. And also virtualize physical network into a virtual network inside the hypervisor. First, remember about the real-time on Linux before to see the real-time with virtualization. Just what is the real-time? It's a capacity of a system to respond to a given input within a tiny constant time frame. It's not very to be very performant, but just respond in a given time. To have real time on Linux, you have to first have a real time kernel. The main it is to do this you have to customize the kernel, and the first thing to do is to change the preemption model to have a preemptible kernel. Here it is a screen with config. You can also add the preempt RT patches. Preempt RT patches assure the kernel to become a full preemptible, and with this you can respect your scheduling. In the process part, you have to define to your process. You must give it RT scheduler. In Linux, there is multiple scheduler. There is a regular scheduler that, like Scheduler, for example, and RT scheduler like FIFO, one-way ring. In server, we have more powerful CPU with many cores, so we can also use a dedicated core to process or a VM in our case. To be sure that the VM is not preempted by another process. Here it's a sample of kernel configuration you can tweak to increase RT aspect on Linux. Donc, the first part is the preemption model, like I said previously. You can also disable the debug preempt. It's not mandatory, but avoid to tweak the preempt aspect. On x86 on PC, you have to disable a CPU fixture for processor. Also, all frequency dynamic change CPU FAC have to be disabled. And if your machine have a high resolution timer, you have to enable it. There is a lot of other things you can do to improve the kernel configuration. You can watch the talk, the Pierre Ficheux talk in a replay if you want to know more about this. Here it's the process part, how to change, for example, the scheduling. The simplest way is to use chrt command. Here is an example to set the PID 55 to use a RT scheduler with a RT priority of 1. An RT priority of 1 is higher than no RT priority. It's the first RT priority, so your process will be of the top of all regular process. I can show you an example. Here it's I will launch a zip command with chrt and give it a faithful scheduling and a RT priority of 1. Okay. You can use PS, for example, to see the priority and the scheduler. For example, here it's all the process. You can see TS is for scheduler. Here it's the priority. There is some process like Pipewire which have already an RT scheduler and an RT priority. For example, Pipewire have the one moving scheduling. If you want to see, our zip command is now have a RT scheduler FIFO with a RT priority of 1. The RT priority of 1 is begin at 40. The RT priority, so it have 41 priority. To isolate the process on the dedicated CPU, you have first reserve all the dedicated core for move your isolated process into it. To do that, in your kernel, you have to enable the CPU isolation and the no HZ fold. Later, you have defined with kernel parameter which CPU must be isolated. It is done with 4 kernel parameters. Isolas CPUs to tell to Linux to not put process on this core. No HZ fault to it's an optimization, and no CBS is to avoid to have RCU thread onto it. You can with this kernel parameter just put a single CPU or a pledge or multiple CPU core separated by comma. Later, you can move your process with the taxed command. Here is an example to move the process 55 into the core 2. I can show you with my zip process if it is done. No, sorry. Yeah. I will move my zip process into the CPU 2. It's not working. It is still on 0. Yes. It's because the process have to be rescheduling before moving to CPU 2. The next part, the scheduler will give the end to the zip process. It will move it in CPU 2. But because you have an RT priority, it takes the time all. You have the end all the time. The other part you have to be careful in Linux with real time and in all system with real time is interruption. In Linux, you can see all interruption in proc interrupts. Here you have all the interruption and on which core it has been triggered. For example, this one has been triggered on CPU1 more than 3000 times. To be sure, NIRQ did not trigger on your reserve CPU. You can define an affinity to your IRQ using the SMP affinity on proc IRQ with following to the IRQ number. There is also a daemon IRQ balance. We can do the job for you for all IRQ with the parameter IRQ balance by CPU to avoid to reserve CPU. Now you have defined your and customized your kernel and your process. To monitor it, you can use cyclic test. Cyclic test is a tool designed to measure the latency of your process. It will trigger many samples and measure it on how time it takes to respond it. It can generate a plot like this. You can see all the sample and the latency associated. Cyclic test is great, but sometimes it's not really the real life. Your process can have a different comportment and do not respect the latency measured by cyclic test. In this case, and to improve all RTL space, we can use the LTTNG tools. LTTNG it's tracing tools which is not no images and can work in the user space and kernel. It can monitor all the kernel part, the context switch, the IRQ, and you can also define custom traces, for example, in your application to measure latency. If you want to know more about these tools, you can watch live embedded Philip Dironek talk this afternoon. Now we can continue with virtualization. Just a little reminder of the virtualization on Linux. Virtualization on Linux is mainly done with QEMU and KVM. There is other software like Zen or VirtualBox, but it's QEMU and KVM which is more advanced with RTL space. KVM is for kernel-based virtualization. It's the kernel part, it's a kernel module. It's a software bare metal hypervisors inside the kernel. It has a really small code to easily make it. It do not emulate the CPU and require virtualization mechanism like Intel VitaX or AMD. QEMU is the user space part. It's an emulator software. It can emulate all a machine or work with KVM together to have better performance. In case it works with QEMU and KVM, QEMU will emulate all the functionality not covered by KVM, and it will manage the communication between out and VM. It is also the process you have to call to run a VM. There is also libvirt, an optional tool which is good to translate XML file into QEMU calls, CLI calls, because QEMU is very obscure to run, and it is easy to do it with libvirt. But you can skip it if you want. sorry. Now we can see the main part of the talk, the virtualization and the real time together. To improve the real-time inside VM, the first thing to use KVM. Like I said previously, we can use QEMU without KVM, but it's not a good idea. Without KVM, QEMU is very slow and have very bad RT performance. You do not have to change your CPU and pass through the CPU host configuration to avoid any emulation and have the maximum performance and real-time performance also. You can give to the KVM thread an RT priority. It's the main important thing to do. If you have multiple CPU cores, you can also isolate the KVM thread. Do not enable any monitoring unit virtualization, which can interrupt the KVM thread and have an impact into your RT application. About the memory, you can use use pages to pre-allocate use page of memory and disable all memory page sharing to use this use page only with KVM and your virtual machine. Do not use virtual memory balloon, which is a feature to growth dynamically the memory, but when you growth the memory, it have a cost and can have delay in your RT application. And avoid all unnecessary devices. All devices are have emulated and can generate interrupt inside your VM or interrupt the KVM process. Here it is a sample of Lievert configuration with all I said previously. The first thing to do, so it is very use the Lievert QEMU with the KVM, so the domain KVM. Allocate the memory allocation. We allocate 1 gigabit, and the memory is using use pages of 1 gigabit. It's the maximum we can have on PC SSID. We lock the use page to avoid another process use it, and we disable share pages, like I said previously. We have in this example only one CPU. PMU state off is to disable the monitoring. Here it's to pin and attach a CPU into CPU set 2 to have a dedicated core on it. We give it an RT priority on 1 using the FIFO scheduling. We use host, the same CPU as the host to avoid unnecessary emulation. Here is to associate to the core the memory we have allocated. Here it's because we have only one CPU. And on some system you have, if you have a TSC deadline timer, to enable it on, to have it on VM, you have to add this configuration. Just to have a precision, you can do, there is another way to use a dedicated core for the VM and the system. You can also use cgroup, which is a more modern way to do it, but it is not very integrated in Lievert and QEMU for the moment. You have to define your whole cgroup size with your own CPU set. If you do this, you have disable this and use a hook instead. In this configuration, the advantage is it's dynamic, so when the VM is not running up, the core can be used with other process. Now you can see it's a latency plot generated by the cyclic test tools, like we talked previously. Without any optimization, the max latency is over 1 millisecond. It is outside the graph. You can see there is many spike and the repartition of sample is very large. With RT optimization and no CPU isolation, it's better. The latency, the max latency is only around 300. It's here. All the spike are done over, disappear. The repartition is always large. With CPU isolation alone, without RT optimization, it is even better. The max latency is around 100 microseconds. The spikes are always disappear. And with CPU isolation and RT optimization, it's the best result. Of course, the max latency is around 66 microseconds, and all the sample are concentrated near the average. Now we have seen the RT part, but an application have to communicate with the outside world, and the common way to do it is to give a network access, and you have also have low latency constraints into this network. Here it's how it's the classical regular case, how the network work on the VM. There is the NIC, which is the Ethernet card, the Linux driver. Here you can use a Linux bridge if you have multiple VM, or Mac. You can also, if you have only YVM, use a Mac VLAN type interface. We use usually, to have the better performance, we use VeosNet interface, which is a KVM part. It's communicate with the VM with the para virtualization Virtaionet driver, and it's create inside the VM network interface which can be used by your VM software. The limitation of this use case is because it is difficult to describe the complex network. All the rules are defined into the kernel, and if you remember our use case, the goal is to move all the network hardware, like switch and router you can find in your post, to inside your hypervisors, and it is very complex to define rules to match your previous network configuration. The other aspect is the RT performance aspect. It's work on interrupted mode, which is good for regular case, but if you want to reduce the latency, it's better to work in pooling mode, so you always check for packets. And it is not designed for low latency. To try to solve this drawback, we can use two tools. The first one is Open vSwitch. Sorry, the slide is Open vSwitch. Open vSwitch is it is a virtual switch, multi-layer switch. We can work on layer 2, layer 3. So we can define all your network rules inside the switch, and just moving physical switch become an open vSwitch virtualized switch. Open vSwitch can be distributed. If you have more than one hypervisor, for example, if you have a cluster, you can extend your switch into another hypervisor. And when you move a VM into this other hypervisor, you keep your network. Open vSwitch can work in kernel space or user space. It can create Linux bridge like we regular Linux bridge can do. It have a software-defined component, AZN, OpenFlow, to describe all your complex network rules. With this, you can describe all the VLAN aspect, the weightage, your route, your filtering, and you can define whatever you want. The drawback of OpenVSwitch, it is less performance than regular Linux bridge. It is not designed for performance, but it can work with DPDK if you want performances. It is what we done. DPDK is for Data Plane Development Kit. It is a set of library, and this set of library, inside this set of library, there is a user space driver. This user space driver will replace the kernel driver. It is designed for performance and work in pooling mode. So the DPDK thread, the user space driver DPDK thread will always check for new packet incoming. It will take one CPU at 100%, but it have better latencies. To use DPDK, you have to design a DPDK application, which will be linked with a DPDK library. You have to give to DPDK full access to your link. To do that, you have to use the Linux driver Verifio PCI, which is a PCI pass-through driver. And DPDK with directly access to the PCI box and access directly to your link. So if you do that, of course, Linux will no longer control the link, so you will use your network interface, and you will use the network. If you can use it DPDK with OpenVSwitch. OpenVSwitch become DPDK application, and with OpenVSwitch you have a switch, so you keep your you can use OpenVSwitch to keep a network connection with your switch by creating an OpenVSwitch port inside the host, and you can give to the VM the network too. With this configuration, we have performance and all the facilities offered by OpenVSwitch, which is the 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 best compromise between facilities and performances. Here it is a graph which describes how it works. Now we replace the Linux driver by the PCI pass-through Linux driver, verify your PCI. Here inside OpenVSwiss, which become a DPDK application, we have the DPDK driver, which work in polling mode. In our Swiss, we define a port, DPDK VS user port. For example, here we have 2 VM, so we have 2 ports. We can also have a port for give the host access to the network and communicate also with the VM. The VM now, instead using vhost interface, we use vhost user interface. We still use Virtuio Net driver to create the interface inside the kernel. To configure OpenVSwiss and DPDK to work together, you have to use inside OpenVSwiss, you have to create DPDK VS user client port to all your VM. You have also use OpenVSwiss into full user space mode. You do not have to use the kernel OpenVSwiss part because DPDK is user space. You have to create also a port to DPDK and describe when you create a DPDK VS client port, you have to give it a socket path. Later in QEMU, you have to use this socket path and create a vhost client interface connected to the DPDK VS user client. For better performance, you have to choose Virtuio as card model. And the better solution is to use to give the socket creation to KVM, because if OpenVSwiss crash, it is easy to KVM if you have a mechanism to restart OpenVSwiss. If KVM controls the socket, it will reconnect to OpenVSwiss automatically. If OpenVSwiss is a server, it is not the case, and we will lose your connection. As for real-time, it is an example of a Lievit configuration to work with DPDK and OpenVSwiss. We'll see the VS user interface, the socket part we have created. We work in server mode. You can define if you want the MAC address into it. We use the Virtuio model. We can also define, customize the Virtuio queue. It can be useful. The RX and TX size, if you want. And it is the only thing you have to do inside the VM configuration. Later, now we have, as we do for VM, we also have to tweak OpenVSwiss and DPDK for real time. The best thing to do is to isolate DPDK into dedicated code, because it works in pooling mode and take 100% of a core. It is better to isolate it in a dedicated cell can be done with this command, and we give it to it CPU mask. You have to put a binary, it's a binary mask. You have to set one for each CPU core you want to use. For example, here we create two DPDK threads. You can optionally define isolate also thread. We communicate with the DPDK, but not the DPDK polling thread. If you have a lot of CPU core available, do not put the same. Do not use the same CPU as the DPDK polling mode, because if you do that, you will have worse performance. And as we do for VM, you have to give OpenVSwiss thread an RT priority. It is not necessary if you isolate the PMD thread, because it will always work 100%. If you give an RT priority to the PMD thread, you have to disable the RT threading. It's a mechanism which can be used to give time to no RT process if an RT process take 100% the CPU load. So you have to disable it, because DPDK polling mode thread will use 100 CPU% core and have to use it at 100%. This is what we done on CPaaS, but there is also other approaches. If you do not have the need to communicate between us and VM and VM together, you can also give the NIC directly inside, send the NIC directly inside the VM using the same Linux pass-through driver. In this case, the VM will use will accept to the NIC as the hosts do otherwise, and use the same Linux driver as the host do. If you have an hardware that support SR IOV feature, you can use it to create a virtual NIC, PCI address to create virtual NIC. SR IOV will create virtual access. We can use it after with the PCI pass-through driver to send it to the VM, and with SR IOV, many VM can access to the NIC with using the PCI pass-through. In this configuration, all the VM are isolated and can't communicate each other and can't communicate to the host too. So it is useful if you have design that can be used correspond to this use case. Otherwise, you need to have the previous solution or have another solution to bring the communication between VM and the host. The other thing you can do is to use DPDK inside the VM. So you can use it with the previous to this use case to replace the VS user by you replace the Linux Virtual driver by the VFIO PCI driver and use DPDK inside the VM, and your software will become a DPDK application. It brings better performance, but you lose all you give an exclusive access to your software, to the network, and all other process will not have the access to the network. You can also use it to have the better case to have performance is to use PCI Pass-through or SRIUV PCI Pass-through to send the link inside the VM, and later use DPDK to send the NIC control by the DPDK thread of your VM software. It is definitely the best case for performance. The main drawback of this use case is you have to have a dedicated NIC, of course, and also you have to have a dedicated thread for your VM and a dedicated thread for the dedicated core. Sorry, for your DPDK application. So your VM need to have at least two physical core, and two isolated physical core. So it is the end of my talk. If you have any question, do not hesitate.